On that cold winter morning, Martha, a gray-haired lady with a tender gaze, was making her usual way to the church. Upon reaching the entrance, she noticed something unusual. A small wicker basket was there, motionless. Curious, she approached and found a baby wrapped in tattered blankets. "My God!" she exclaimed, feeling her heart race. The baby's soft cries echoed through the church entrance, and Martha knew in that instant that her life would change forever. With trembling hands, she picked up the baby and entered the church, where the pastor was waiting for the morning service. "Pastor, look what I found," she said, showing the baby to the kind-faced man. The pastor, surprised, looked at the child and then at Martha, understanding the gravity of the situation. "Let's take him inside and warm him up," he suggested, leading Martha and the baby to a private room. There, they provided food and clean clothes for the child. In the following days, Martha couldn't get the baby out of her mind. Talking with the pastor, she shared her desire to care for the little life. "Pastor, I feel that God put this boy in my path for a reason," she said, tears in her eyes. The pastor, with a compassionate smile, replied, "Martha, God's love manifests in mysterious ways. If you feel you can take care of him, you will have my support." And so, with the pastor's support, Martha decided to adopt the baby, naming him John. Each day was a new challenge but also a new blessing. Martha, with her unconditional love and infinite patience, dedicated herself to raising John as her own son. The nights were filled with lullabies and stories about faith and love, as John grew up surrounded by Martha's care and affection. Time passed, and John turned into a curious and energetic boy. Martha, despite her advanced age, ensured that the boy lacked nothing. "You are my miracle," she often said when putting him to bed. John, with his big, bright eyes, responded with an innocent smile, unaware of the hardships his mother faced to raise him. The years passed, and John grew into a rebellious and questioning teenager. Arguments between him and Martha became frequent, especially about household responsibilities and the strict rules she imposed. "You don't understand, Martha. Your rules are outdated," John would shout, exasperated, while Martha tried to remain calm. "John, my dear, these rules are for your own good," she would respond, her voice tired but firm. John, however, felt suffocated by Martha's discipline. He thought that because she was old, she didn't understand the challenges and desires of his generation. "You don't know what it's like to really live," he would say angrily. Hurt, Martha often sought advice from the pastor on how to deal with her son's rebellion. "Pastor, I feel like I'm losing John," she would confess, tears in her eyes. The pastor, always wise, would comfort her. "Martha, love and patience are our best weapons. Keep showing him the right path." One desperate night, Martha and John had a heated argument that ended with John storming out of the house, slamming the door. Alone in the living room, Martha let her tears flow freely. She knew raising John wouldn't be easy, but the constant fights were draining her strength. "God, give me wisdom to deal with my son," she prayed, her heart heavy. Despite the conflicts, there were moments when John showed genuine affection for Martha. Deep down, he knew she always wanted the best for him, but the pressures of adolescence and the quest for freedom spoke louder. "Sorry about today," he would murmur upon seeing her in the kitchen the next morning. Martha, with a sad smile, would caress his face. "It's okay, my son. We'll get through this together," she would reply, hopeful. The conflicts continued, but Martha never gave up on John. Each time he stormed out of the house in anger, she prayed for his safety. And every time he returned, she welcomed him with love and understanding. "I just want you to be happy and safe, John," she would say when the waters calmed. John, despite all his rebellion, knew that Martha's love for him was unconditional. Little did he know that new challenges were about to arise, further testing the bonds between mother and son. One day, John introduced Ashley to Martha. Ashley was a city girl, uninhibited and full of attitude. Right from the start, Martha felt uncomfortable. "This is Ashley, Mom," John said with a confident smile while they were at the park. She's my friend. Despite her intuition, Martha smiled politely. Nice to meet you, Ashley, she said, observing the young woman cautiously. The differences between Ashley and Martha were stark. Ashley had no religion, and her provocative behavior shocked Martha. During a walk around town, Ashley talked about parties and adventures, while Martha tried to introduce more serious and spiritual topics. Have you ever thought about going to church, Ashley? Martha asked, hoping for a positive response. Church isn't my thing, Ashley replied with a challenging smile. Ashley's influence began to cause tension. John seemed more distant and irritable, influenced by the uninhibited behavior of his new friend. Mom, you need to relax, he would often say when he saw Martha worried. The nights at home, once peaceful and harmonious, turned into sessions of conflict and arguments. Ashley is a bad influence on you, John, Martha argued. You're changing, and not for the better. John, taken by his rebellion, fervently defended Ashley. You don't understand, Mom. Ashley makes me feel alive, he responded vehemently. Martha, worn out, often sought refuge in the church, seeking advice from the pastor. I'm losing my son to the world, she confided. The pastor, always calm, encouraged her. Keep praying, Martha. God has a plan for each of us. Over time, the situation worsened. Ashley encouraged John to disobey Martha and seek more freedom. Let's run away, John. Far from here, where no one controls us, she suggested on a starry night. John, drawn to the idea of escaping Martha's strict rules, began planning the escape. Maybe it's the best thing to do, he thought, looking at the horizon. Martha, despite the adversities, did not give up trying to save her son. John, I love you. Everything I do is for your own good, she said, tears in her eyes. But John, influenced by Ashley, had already made up his mind. The desire for freedom was stronger than any of Martha's arguments. I need to live my own life, Mom, he declared, determined. And so the escape plan was sealed. John and Ashley were ready to leave everything behind, taking only the essentials. Martha, feeling a dark premonition, prayed fervently for a miracle. God, protect my son and bring him back, she prayed, while John and Ashley prepared for a new journey. With the decision made, John and Ashley began planning their escape. In the dead of night, they met at the town's central square. We have to take only the essentials, John said, looking at Ashley with determination. We can't carry much, or we'll draw attention. Ashley agreed, a sparkle of excitement in her eyes. Let's live our life, John, without anyone to control us. They each grabbed a backpack, packing clothes, some money and personal items. John, looking at Martha's house one last time, felt a pang in his heart, but the need for freedom spoke louder. Are you ready? Ashley asked, holding his hand. John took a deep breath, nodding. Yes, let's go. With quick steps, they moved away from the house, beginning a new journey. As they walked through the quiet streets, John felt a mix of excitement and fear. Where are we going first? Ashley asked, breaking the silence. Can we take a bus to the coastal town you mentioned? John suggested, recalling the stories Ashley told about places where no one knew them. Yes, that's perfect, she replied, squeezing his hand tightly. Arriving at the bus station, they bought tickets to the next coastal town. Are you sure you don't want to call Martha? Ashley asked, seeing the hesitation in John's eyes. She'll be worried. John shook his head, resolute. No, she wouldn't understand. It's better this way. With tickets in hand, they boarded the bus, leaving everything they knew behind. The journey was quiet. John looked out the window, memories of his life with Martha playing like a movie in his mind. Are we doing the right thing? He asked, turning to Ashley. Of course we are, she replied with a confident smile. We're starting a new life, with no one telling us what to do. John tried to convince himself that she was right, but doubt still lingered. Arriving in the new town, the smell of the sea and the sound of the waves brought a sense of freedom. Let's find a place to stay, Ashley said, pulling John by the hand. We need to be quick. They found a small inn where they could stay temporarily. It's simple, but it's a start, John said as they settled in. It's all we need, Ashley replied with a smile. As night fell, John and Ashley began mapping out their plans for the future. We'll find jobs and save money, Ashley said. We'll live our life our way. John nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. I hope my mother understands someday, he thought, looking out at the horizon. The coastal town where John and Ashley settled was small but full of life. The narrow streets and the salty aroma of the sea gave a sense of freedom that John had never experienced before. This place is amazing, Ashley said, looking at the horizon. Here we can be whoever we want. John smiled, but inside he felt a mix of anxiety and excitement. They found a modest house to rent, not far from the beach. It's not much, but it's ours, John said, looking at the simple walls and worn-out furniture. We'll turn this into a home, Ashley responded optimistically. The difficulties began to appear right away. The money they had was little, and they needed to find work quickly. I'll look for something tomorrow, John said, determined. We need to stabilize ourselves. John got a job as a plumber, while Ashley found work as a waitress at a seaside cafe. The days were long and tiring, but they were determined to make it work. We're making it, John, Ashley said, holding his hand after an exhausting day. We're building our life together. John smiled, but the financial difficulties weighed on him. We need to save more, he thought, worried about the mounting bills. Adapting to the new life was harder than they had imagined. John, used to the security and support of Martha, missed the stability he had at home. Are you okay? Ashley asked, noticing his distant expression. I am. Just thinking, John replied, trying to push away the worry. They knew the path would be tough, but they were willing to fight for their independence. The nights were filled with conversations about dreams and future plans. One day we'll have our own house without worries, Ashley said hopefully. Yes, we will, John agreed, even though doubt sometimes lingered. They supported each other, trying to stay optimistic in the face of adversity. We're in this together, Ashley would say, and John clung to those words to keep going. Weekends were the most anticipated moments. They walked along the beach, feeling the sea breeze and dreaming of a better future. This place is our refuge, John said, looking at the horizon. Yes, it is, Ashley agreed, hugging him. They found solace in the simplicity of nature, even though reality was harsh. We'll make it, they repeated like a mantra. Despite the challenges, there were moments of joy and companionship. Today we did a good job, John said after fixing a difficult plumbing issue. Yes, and I got good tips, Ashley replied with a smile. Every small victory was celebrated, strengthening their bond. We're doing well, they said, motivating each other to continue. We're ready for whatever comes, John thought, not knowing what the future held. Days passed quickly in the new town, and John and Ashley were slowly adapting to their new routine. However, one afternoon changed everything. Ashley was waiting for John in the small living room when he got home from work. John, we need to talk, she said, nervous. John sensed the serious tone in her voice and felt a chill down his spine. What happened? He asked, worried. Ashley took a deep breath before responding. I'm pregnant, John. The words echoed in his mind as he tried to process the information. Pregnant? He repeated, incredulous. How did this happen? Ashley just looked at him, waiting for a reaction. John, still in shock, sat down on the couch, his mind full of confused thoughts. This changes everything, he murmured. The news brought a wave of conflicting emotions. We're going to have a baby, Ashley said, trying to smile. Yes, a baby, John replied, still trying to grasp the magnitude of the situation. The responsibility and the future now seemed frighteningly real. We need to prepare, he said, feeling the weight of responsibility fall on his shoulders. I know, Ashley replied, with a mix of fear and hope in her eyes. The following days were a mix of planning and anxiety. We need to save more money, John said as they reviewed the budget. And we need a plan for the future, Ashley added, jotting down ideas in a notebook. Conversations about dreams turned into practical discussions about diapers, food, and doctors. We're in this together, they repeated, trying to comfort each other. Despite the worries, there were moments of joy and anticipation. What do you think the baby will be like? Ashley asked, caressing her belly. I hope he has your eyes, John replied, smiling. They imagined the future, trying to visualize life with the baby. We'll do our best, John promised as he hugged Ashley. Yes, we will, she agreed, feeling a bit more reassured. However, the uncertainty about their financial future still loomed over them. What if we can't support the baby? John asked during a sleepless night. We'll find a way, Ashley replied firmly. We always do. But the doubt persisted, and John thought about Martha, remembering the security she could provide. Should we go back? He pondered. But pride and the need to prove his independence held him back. The months passed, and Ashley's belly grew. Each doctor's appointment was a reminder of the reality that was approaching. Everything is fine with the baby, the doctor said, but the worries didn't disappear. Are we ready for this? John asked, looking at Ashley. I don't know, she answered honestly, but we don't have a choice. Their determination to face the future together was what kept them strong. As the last month of pregnancy arrived, the tension increased. Anything can happen now, Ashley said, anxious. Yes, we're so close, John agreed, holding her hand. It was at this moment that fate decided to test their strength and unity even further, bringing an unexpected twist that would change everything. One night, Ashley was descending the stairs when she tripped and fell. John! She screamed as she tumbled down the steps clumsily. John ran to her, panic evident on his face. Ashley, are you okay? He asked as he helped her up, but the pain on her face said it all. We need to go to the hospital now, he said desperately. At the hospital, the doctors acted quickly. She's in critical condition, one of the doctors informed John as they took Ashley to the emergency room. The baby is also at risk. John felt the world collapse around him. Do whatever it takes to save them, he pleaded. But the decision that lay before him was agonizing. Save Ashley's life or the baby's? You need to choose, the doctor said with a serious look. John was in shock. How can I choose between the woman I love and our child? He thought, feeling helpless. Ashley, conscious and aware of the gravity of the situation, held John's hand. Save our baby? She whispered, tears in her eyes. John, heartbroken, nodded. Save the baby, he told the doctors, trying not to let despair show. The following hours were a whirlwind of emotions. John waited in the waiting room, praying and asking for strength. God, give me wisdom and strength to face this, he murmured, his hands trembling. Finally, a doctor appeared with a serious expression. The baby is fine, but Ashley is in critical condition, he informed. John felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Can I see her? He asked, his voice choked. Entering the room, he saw Ashley lying there, surrounded by machines and tubes. Our baby is fine, he said, holding her hand. Ashley smiled weakly. That's all that matters, she whispered before closing her eyes. John held Asher, their newborn son, in his arms, feeling an indescribable love mixed with deep pain. Welcome to the world, Asher, he said, tears streaming down his face. The following days were difficult. Ashley didn't survive and passed away, leaving John devastated. How am I going to raise Asher alone? He wondered, feeling overwhelmed by the responsibility. The news of Ashley's death and Asher's birth spread quickly. John, feeling lost and unsupported, decided that the best option for Asher was to go back to Martha. On a cold night, John left Asher at Martha's doorstep with a letter explaining his decision and the love he felt for his son. Dear Mother, I entrust to you my greatest treasure. Take care of him as you took care of me. I will always be around, he wrote. With a heavy heart, he knocked on the door and hid in the shadows. Martha, upon opening the door and finding Asher, felt a mix of surprise and sadness. "John, where are you?" she whispered, looking around. Despite the pain and loss, John knew that Martha would take good care of Asher. He watched from afar, ensuring his son was safe. "I promise I will return one day," he thought as he watched Martha bring Asher inside the house. John felt lost leaving Asher with Martha, but he knew he was making the right decision. Watching from a distance, he saw Martha welcome the baby with tears in her eyes and unconditional love. "I will take care of you, my little one," she whispered, hugging Asher tenderly. John, hidden in the shadows, felt a mix of relief and sadness. "He is in good hands," he thought, trying to convince himself. In the weeks that followed, John kept in secret contact with the pastor, getting updates on Asher's health and well-being. "Martha is doing very well," the pastor said during a discreet conversation at the church. "She is raising Asher with the same love and dedication she had for you." John nodded, grateful, but he couldn't shake the feeling of guilt. "Am I doing the right thing?" he asked himself many times. The pastor, understanding John's anguish, offered to help in any way possible. "You can always count on me," he said. John found some solace in these words and continued to work hard, trying to save money and stabilize himself. "One day, I will be able to give Asher the life he deserves," he promised himself as he faced daily struggles. Martha, in turn, dedicated herself completely to Asher. She made sure to tell stories, sing lullabies, and give all the love she could. "You are my second chance," she would say, caressing the baby's face. The bond between them grew every day, bringing joy to Martha's heart. Asher, with his bright eyes and innocent smile, was the light that illuminated her days. John, though physically absent, was always present in spirit. He sent money and small tokens through the pastor, who delivered them to Martha without revealing their origin. "An angel is watching over us," Martha would say when receiving the gifts. John watched from afar, making sure Martha and Asher lacked nothing. "Thank you, Pastor," he would say, grateful for the continuous support. However, John knew that eventually, he would have to face his past and find a way to reconcile with Martha and Asher. "I can't hide forever," he thought as he looked at the photos the pastor sent him. Asher was growing rapidly, and John didn't want to miss these important moments. "I need to find a way to be present," he decided. Meanwhile, Martha cared for Asher with the same love and dedication she had shown John. "You are the joy of my life," she would say, watching the baby take his first steps. Asher, with his infectious smile, filled the house with laughter and happiness. Martha knew that the challenge of raising Asher alone would be great, but she was determined to provide him with a life full of love and security. Time passed, and John continued to work hard, always thinking of Asher and Martha. "One day, we will all be together again," he promised, as he saved every penny he could. He knew the path would be difficult, but he was determined to do whatever it took to protect and support his family. "You will never be alone, Asher," he murmured, looking toward the horizon. Time passed, and Asher grew, full of life and joy. "You are my blessing, my little one," Martha would say as she played with him in the garden. Asher loved hearing the stories she told, especially those about love and faith. "Tell me more, Grandma," he would ask, his eyes shining with curiosity and admiration. Martha kept the true story of Asher's parents a secret, wanting to protect the boy from pain. All in good time, she thought, as she watched Asher play with his neighborhood friends. She worked hard to provide him with a stable and secure life, full of happy moments. "You deserve all the love in the world," she murmured, stroking her grandson's hair as he slept. John, even from a distance, closely followed Asher's growth. He frequently talked with the pastor, who kept John informed about everything. "Asher is doing well in school and is loved by everyone," the pastor reported. John felt a mix of pride and longing. "I wish I could be there to see it," he said, his voice choked with emotion. But he knew his presence might complicate things. Despite the distance, John did not stop contributing to Asher's well-being. He regularly sent money and small gifts through the pastor, Martha, upon receiving the presents, always felt a pang of curiosity and gratitude. Who could this angel be? She wondered as she opened the packages. But she never failed to silently thank for the help received. God takes care of us in mysterious ways, she reflected. Asher grew up with a solid foundation of love and values. Always do good, my dear, Martha advised as they walked together to church. Asher listened attentively, absorbing every teaching. He was a sweet and gentle boy, always willing to help others. I want to be like you, Grandma, he would say, and Martha felt her heart overflow with pride and love. Despite all the difficulties, Martha never stopped believing in the power of love and faith. She continued to attend church, where she found comfort and strength. God has a plan for all of us, she told the pastor, who agreed with a smile. The pastor, knowing the true story, kept John and Martha's trust, always acting as a link between the two. John, for his part, worked tirelessly, always thinking of Asher and Martha. One day, I will be with you, he promised himself as he saved every penny. He knew the path to reconciliation would be long and difficult, but he was determined to face any challenge. For now, it's better this way, he concluded, waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth. Time passed, and Asher continued to grow, surrounded by Martha's unconditional love. He didn't know the secret his grandmother kept, but he felt loved and protected. You are my life, Asher, Martha would say, hugging him tightly. Asher, with an innocent smile, would respond, and you are mine, Grandma. Meanwhile, John held on to the hope of a future where they would all be together again, living as a complete family. Years later, when Asher was about to turn 10, an unexpected crisis shattered the family's tranquility. Martha noticed that Asher was more tired than usual and frequently in pain. Let's go to the doctor, my dear, she said, worried. After a series of tests, the diagnosis was devastating. Asher was suffering from acute kidney failure, inherited from his biological mother, and urgently needed a kidney transplant. Martha felt the world crumble. What will we do now? She asked the doctor, tears in her eyes. We need to find a compatible donor as soon as possible, the doctor replied gravely. Martha tried to stay calm, but fear for Asher's well-being consumed her. We'll get through this, my love, she said to Asher, trying to hide her concern. The pastor was the first to be informed of the situation. We need a miracle, Martha said, desperate. The pastor, always serene, promised to help in every way possible. We will find a donor, Martha. Do not lose faith, he said, holding her hand. In secret, the pastor contacted John, who was shocked by the news. My son needs me, he thought, feeling despair take over. John decided he needed to act quickly. I will be the donor, he told the pastor, but do it anonymously. I don't want Asher or Martha to know who I am until everything is resolved. The pastor agreed, promising to keep the secret. John underwent the necessary tests and, fortunately, was a match. Save my son, he asked the doctor, tears in his eyes. Do it without revealing my identity. The process was swift. John was admitted and underwent surgery, donating one of his kidneys to Asher. Meanwhile, Martha anxiously waited for news at the hospital. Everything will be fine, she repeated to herself like a prayer. After hours of waiting, the doctor finally appeared. The surgery was a success. Asher is out of danger, he announced. Martha, relieved, let tears of joy flow. Thank God, she murmured, hugging the pastor. When Asher woke up, Martha was by his side, holding his hand. You were very brave, my dear, she said, kissing his forehead. Asher smiled, still weak. I knew you would be here, Grandma, he replied. Martha silently thanked the anonymous donor, not knowing it was John who had saved Asher's life. You are our angel, she thought, full of gratitude. John, still recovering from the surgery, felt relieved. My son is safe, he thought, as the pastor gave him updates on Asher's progress. You made a great sacrifice, John, said the pastor. Martha and Asher are well thanks to you. John nodded, feeling at peace for the first time in many years. "I would do it 1,000 times if necessary," he replied sincerely. Asher's recovery was swift, and soon he was back home, surrounded by Martha's love. "You are a warrior, my little one," she said, as she cared for him with all her affection. Asher, not fully understanding the gravity of what had happened, simply smiled. "All thanks to you, Grandma," he responded, feeling safe in her arms. Meanwhile, John, still in the shadows, continued to watch over and protect his family. John, after the surgery, was recovering slowly, knowing he had made the right choice to save Asher's life. During the following weeks, he remained in constant contact with the pastor, who provided updates on Asher's recovery. "He is getting stronger every day," the pastor said, bringing immense relief to John's heart. "I'm grateful for everything," John replied, feeling the pain of recovery mixed with the satisfaction of having helped his son. Martha, on the other hand, couldn't stop thinking about the anonymous donor who had saved Asher's life. Who could have had such generosity? She often wondered. She felt immense gratitude and wished to meet the person who had given her grandson a new chance. "He is our angel," she told the pastor, who only smiled in response, carefully guarding the secret. Asher, still recovering, began asking questions about the donor. "Grandma, who gave me the kidney?" he asked, curious. Martha stroked his hair and replied, "It was someone very special, my love, a true guardian angel." Asher smiled, feeling blessed to be surrounded by so much love and care. "I want to thank that person one day," he said, with the sincerity typical of a child. Meanwhile, John prepared to return to his routine, knowing that the time to reveal the truth was approaching. "I need to find the courage to face Martha and Asher," he thought, feeling the weight of responsibility. He decided that as soon as he was fully recovered, he would go to the town and reveal everything. "They deserve to know the truth," he concluded, determined. Finally, the day came. John, nervous, headed to Martha's house, accompanied by the pastor. "It's time," said the pastor with an encouraging look. John took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Martha, surprised to see the pastor and an unfamiliar man, opened the door cautiously. "Pastor, what brings you here?" she asked before realizing who the man beside him was. "John?" she exclaimed, recognizing him immediately. John, with tears in his eyes, fell to his knees before Martha. "Forgive me for everything, Mother," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "I did what I thought was best for Asher." Martha, shocked, brought her hand to her mouth, trying to process the situation. "You were the donor?" she asked, feeling a mix of emotions. John nodded, confirming. "I couldn't let my son suffer," he said, looking directly into Martha's eyes. Martha, still in shock, hugged John tightly. "Oh, my dear, I forgive you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "You saved Asher's life. That's all that matters." John, feeling the weight of forgiveness lift, hugged her back, feeling finally at peace. "Thank you, Mother," he whispered, relieved. The pastor, watching the scene, smiled contentedly, knowing he had helped reunite a family. Asher, hearing the voices in the living room, appeared at the door. "Grandma, who's here?" he asked before seeing John. Martha, still hugging John, turned to Asher. "My love, this is John, your father," she said, her voice full of emotion. Asher, surprised, looked at John with curiosity. "Are you my father?" he asked shyly. John, with tears in his eyes, nodded. "Yes, my son, and I'm here to stay," he replied. Emotion filled the room. Asher ran into John's arms, feeling a love he couldn't explain. "I love you, Dad," he said, hugging him tightly. John, his heart overflowing with joy, replied, "I love you too, Asher, more than you can imagine." The reunion brought a new beginning for everyone, marking the start of a journey of healing and reconciliation. After the emotional revelation, John decided it was time to rebuild his life alongside Martha and Asher. "I'll make things right this time," he promised himself as he settled into the house he once called home. Martha, seeing John's effort and determination, felt hopeful. "We'll get through this together," she said with a warm smile. Asher, in turn, was thrilled to have his father around. "Now we are a complete family," he said, beaming. The first days of living together were challenging. John told Asher about his mother, Ashley, and had to learn to adapt to Martha and Asher's routine, and vice versa. "We need patience and understanding," Martha said, mediating the small daily conflicts. John, though anxious, did his best to adjust. All for Asher's sake, he thought, increasingly determined. Asher, happy with his father's presence, helped ease the tensions with his affectionate and playful nature. John and Martha began to talk frequently about the past and the difficult decisions they both had to make. "I just wanted to protect Asher," John explained, tears in his eyes. Martha held his hand and replied, "I know, my son, and you did what you thought was right. Now, we are here together, and that's what matters." These conversations helped heal old wounds, bringing a new understanding and mutual acceptance. Asher, observing the growing harmony between John and Martha, felt more secure and loved. "I have the best family in the world," he often said. John and Martha laughed, moved by the boy's innocence and sincerity. "You've taught us so much about love and forgiveness, Asher," John said, proud of his son. Asher smiled, not fully understanding the depth of his father's words. Gradually, John reintegrated into the church community, which welcomed him with open arms. "Welcome back, John," the pastor said with a warm smile. Participating in church activities and helping with community initiatives brought John closer to Martha and Asher. "We are building something beautiful together," John thought, feeling more connected to his faith and his family. The days of peace and joy brought new opportunities for the family. John, now working as a plumber in the town, found satisfaction in his work and the life he was rebuilding. "I have everything I need," he said, feeling grateful for the second chances. Martha, in turn, saw in John the responsible and loving man she had always hoped he would become. "I'm proud of you," she often said. Asher continued to grow, surrounded by John and Martha's love and support. His skills in school and extracurricular activities flourished, and he stood out as a kind and determined boy. "You are proof that love can overcome any obstacle," the pastor said, observing Asher's progress. John and Martha moved, agreed. "He is our miracle," they said in unison. The emotional reconciliation brought new life to everyone. John, Martha, and Asher learned to cherish every moment together, knowing that love and forgiveness are the foundation of a true family. Asher, now aware of the sacrifice and dedication of his parents, felt a deep respect and gratitude. "I love you," he often said as the family gathered to pray or simply be together. The future, once uncertain, now seemed bright and full of promise, thanks to the strength and unity of a family that had overcome all adversities.